the Christian era of Kanye West has come to a complete end in the year 2024. And Kanye made this abundantly clear in a recent interview he did. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there was an interview that Kanye was in, and the discussion and topic of Christianity, Jesus, all of that came up, and he was asked where he's at in that journey. Because if we can look back in 2019, Kanye West seemed to be this new, bold, professing Christian. He made his first gospel album, came out with his second gospel album not long after that, and it just seemed like he was in this different direction. But as his life began to seemingly fall apart with the divorce with Kim and him not seeing his kids anymore, that made a turn for the worse for Kanye. And with that, this is where Kanye kind of explains where he's at and why he no longer is a Christian. So when he was asked this question, the answers he gave were he had an issue with Jesus. His issue with Jesus was when Kanye was going through a hardship in his life, when he was going through difficulty, which he's referring to the divorce and him not seeing his kids, and Kim now was dating Pete Davidson, and all those things that were kind of arising, and Kanye West's kind of career seeming to fall apart. He said, where was Jesus in that? Jesus didn't help me. Jesus didn't give anything to me. He didn't answer my prayers, all those things. So Kanye started to point the blame at Christ, and that's where his fall began. And then he began to express on this interview how he could not fear anybody, and he didn't like how the Bible said we must fear God. Kanye West made it abundantly clear in this interview he fears no man, he fears nobody, no God, nothing. And then he makes this claim, which we've heard him say before in the past, but he makes the claim that he is God, that Kanye West is God, and that he doesn't need God. And so with this, guys, it's disappointing news, it's heartbreaking news, but it reminded me of two scriptures that we should turn to. One found in Proverbs, and then the other one found in Matthew. In Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10, it says this: "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." Kanye West, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You avoiding, denouncing, saying you do not fear anybody, you do not fear God, is foolish. And you are a fool for saying those things and believing those things. And then in Matthew chapter 13, verse 20, this is the parable about the seed sown, and this is Jesus then explaining the parable of the sower. And he says this about one specific ground. He says, "But he who received the seed on stony places, this is he who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures only for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles." This is the stony ground that Kanye West's seeds were planted on. Because in 2019, when he first heard the gospel, when he first heard the good news, he received it with so much joy and excitement, and he was going all over places on television, and he was making his profession of faith, and he was making these gospel albums, and he was changing his life seemingly. But as tribulations came in his life, we see what ultimately ended up happening. And he wasn't able to get past those. And so sadly, he has denounced Christianity, and he's said some outlandish things. He's calling himself God. He says he's the reason why his album is number one now, and he's the reason why he's on top of the world now, because it's all about him. And it's heartbreaking. And we should continue to pray for Kanye and pray for those who are faithful Christians in Kanye's life, if there are any, and just pray that they would just pour into him, invest into him, and pray, guys, that he would turn back to the Lord and truly give his life over to him and surrender fully.